Good evening, everyone. My name is Nelson Pierce, and I'm the pastor of Beloved Community Church in Cincinnati, Ohio. And as always, I am excited to be working with CommEN Strategies in partnership with the Black Environmental Leaders Association to host this year's Black Landscapes Matter conversations. The Black Environmental Leaders Association are aligned as stewards of the natural and built environment through collaboration and partnership to raise awareness and to advocate for environmental and economic justice. And once again, Black Landscapes Matter will be engaging in statewide conversations that explore and elevate the connections between our environment and racial justice. We will be traveling virtually around the state of Ohio to hear from environmental experts, local activists, community leaders, and other critical voices about some of the environmental and landscape challenges facing Black people in cities and communities across the state. Yes, one goal of this series is to be able to name the injustices we as Black people go through and the ways that our built environment has been constructed without regard for our well-being and health, but our conversations won't stop there. These conversations are about Black futures. These conversations are about hope and healing, where we invite ourselves to dream about, to strategize for, and ultimately create new Black landscapes in which our children, our elders, and all of us can breathe free as we do more than survive, but as we thrive. And this is why this conversation matters. And this is why it matters that you are here. Today, we have a buzzworthy conversation as we are talking about the meeting point between our environment, between our food supply, and between our responsibility to steward over creation. And that means we are talking today about bees. Yes, that's right. We are talking today about bees. And I am excited about the panel that is assembled to have this conversation. I want to go to our sister city on the other side of the state of Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, to talk to Trey Williams of Hood Honey. Trey, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the work that you do?
Hello, everybody. I am Trey, CEO and founder of Hood Honey. I'm right here in the city of Cleveland. Thanks for the introduction, by the way. I'm at my farm now, but I teach kids. I work on food justice around the state. And I like to be a beekeeper. So I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Trey. Next, we want to go to welcome Karyn Bigelow, the founder of Beekeeping While Black and Crater Street Foods. Karyn, won't you introduce yourself and say a little bit about the work that you do?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I started Beekeeping While Black to really be a part of creating a community that I struggled to find when I first became a beekeeper. I found myself asking questions in a predominantly white space that I realized I was asking because of how beekeeping intersects with race. And so for me, it's really to increase representation, to be a representation of Black beekeepers, but also to be able to create community and support beekeepers, Black beekeepers on their journey as well. And then also I work at Creation Justice Ministries as my full-time job, where I'm a co-executive director, and our mission is to protect, restore, and rightfully share God's creation.
Thank you so much, Karyn. And last, we want to journey just a little bit out of the state to invite in our special guest, Marcellis Counts from Apiary in the Sky. Marcellis, won't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yes, no, thank you for that introduction. Very eloquent, and you really embodied and summed up a lot of, why I got into the work. So my name is Marcellis Counts, owner operator of Apiary in the Sky, and basically growing up in Newark, like many other, major port cities, destinations, we have a lot of environmental issues, a lot of industrial work, there's a lot of urban neglect and decay. And I kind of grew up with this. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I just kind of decided, I was at a crux of trying to figure out, how I was going to sustain myself long term, but also just, trying to think about what I was going to do to really, kind of bring that community benefit to really, kind of put hope in people's hearts during these times of uncertainty, So the solution was environmentalism, it was food, it was healing, restoration, and now we're here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm excited about this conversation, largely because I am really new to the conversation around beekeeping and never even imagined that a community of Black people who are working in environmentalism and environmental justice in this way existed. So I am really excited to dive into today's conversation. I want to start with Trey, and I want to ask Trey, for my sake, and maybe for the sake of others who would be in this conversation, would you tell us a little bit about why this work is important, and talk to us as you would the kids that you bring to the farm to teach about beekeeping? Why is this work important for us to be paying attention to?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, the work, it's really important because we as Black people here in America, we spend a lot of time inside of cities. So we've kind of lost this connection to the environment, And when I come out here and put my hands in the dirt, I know it heals me. But I think as far as the bees are concerned, I think the bees, they bring a different complexity to what we're doing. And they kind of embody us as Black people, especially now at this state, because we all talk about single moms and everything. And, our queen bees are always single moms, and not that that's the main thing, but we can see how their civilization works, and us as Black people can take, clues from that and can take advice from that. So a lot of times when I bring kids out to the farm, I like to joke and say, yeah, single mom thing, but that's just the introductory to, hey, look at these different jobs that these bees do. So when kids come out, I'll ask them, hey, what does your parent do? And I remember one kid say, yeah, my dad works at the airport. And I was able to show him, well, look, don't you see an airport going on here with these bees going in and out? Another kid says, oh, my parent does this or that. Or they might say, my mom's a teacher. And I'm like, well, look at these bees. They're taking care of the kids. So every job inside the beehive, there's a human job to correlate with it. So, they can really show us a lot about where we're at right now and where we should be going.
Yeah. That is amazing. That really speaks to the principle in Kwanzaa of collective work and responsibility, how the work that we do, the jobs that we do, sometimes seem isolated or not connected. But when you take a step back to look at the whole picture, all of our jobs are necessary. That's really beautiful. Thank you, Trey, for sharing that. Karyn, I want to invite you in to talk a little bit about what was it that inspired you to get into beekeeping and to search for and cultivate communities of Black beekeepers?
Part of my interest in beekeeping really started, I work in the food security and environmental space. And as I was doing research and learning about different issues regarding food security and agriculture, I found myself having this desire to want to metaphorically get my hands dirty in the sense of like putting my hands in the soil, being able to do this work. And beekeeping was something that I definitely never thought I could do or would do. However, it's one of those things where I just randomly was playing a video game during the pandemic, and you got bees in it. And so I decided to become a beekeeper by doing research after doing that. And so I came to beekeeping itself very randomly. But what made me want to find community was I'm a member of the DC Beekeepers Association, which has been a very welcoming environment, but it's still very much a predominantly white environment. And although they try to be as welcoming as possible, I found myself asking questions like, where would it be safe for me to be able to put a hive? As much as I hate the name, because it is my own name, but for my namesake, there are Karyns in the world when it comes to, people calling the cops on Black people for doing things that, are not illegal. And so there was a concern of, if I have my bees in certain locations in the city, would I be subject to, someone calling the cops on me? Would I be subject to, over policing then? And so for me, I started asking those questions. I started wondering, if I use the smoker, how do I make sure that my hair doesn't smell like I'm walking around smelling like a chimney all the time, because I don't have the type of hair where I can wash it every day. And so I started finding myself asking questions as a Black person that I knew no one else was asking in my class. And so that really made me want to find community so that I could have those conversations. And so being able to find that community has really been more affirming, and it really has made beekeeping even more of a joyous experience for me.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. One of the gifts that I hope people are able to share from this and to pass on is the importance of creating community in all of the aspects of what we do. I really believe this is a golden age of Blackness, of being Black and alive in this time, where we get to see a diversity of Black people in all kinds of fields that we never imagined possible, and also recognizing the importance of cultivating community in each of these fields. So thank you very much, Karyn, for sharing your story. And then Marcellis, I want to invite you in to talk to us a little bit about how Apiary in the Sky engages in beekeeping in order to fight environmental racism. Can you help us to draw some of those connections out, please?
Yeah, I think the bees have been an excellent catalyst and kind of really drawn awareness to many environmental issues. So I think like I really chose beekeeping when I first started because, in the city of Newark, a lot of people were doing urban farming, but I feel like sometimes when people hop on trends, things can become oversaturated, and then the areas that need the most attention become overlooked. So seeing with beekeeping or bee population declining due to various diseases and stuff like that, seeing, all the talk about everybody being worried about global warming and things like that, we have to find real restorative solutions that are multifaceted and, kind of killing two birds with one stone. So when I came into beekeeping, it was really a way to do many things the way that Trey and Karyn have done so beautifully. It was a way to, kind of bring people together, a way to encourage dialogue, a way to add representation, even if it wasn't us doing it collectively, even just people becoming beekeepers and being out in society and people seeing us. That's a way to really kind of encourage that representation angle. So really we tried to approach it from so many different angles and really just advocating, so in a lot of the spaces I've been, being, as Karyn mentioned, majority white, just showing that no, there's Black people that if they're not there, they deserve to be there. And some of these doors we have to unlock from the inside. So now, people who didn't have the time to go to that beekeeping course, people who didn't necessarily know that they had this interest or passion, we're able to unlock that and really able to expose people to that now. And it's like you said, instead of, being in a place where we're always focused on the problems, we get to, offer people solutions. We get to offer people, this could be a hobby for some people. Like I've really helped people start, businesses. I've helped people just kind of expand their knowledge and expand, their curiosity, really just kind of getting people to be more mindful, more grounded, and like Trey said, more connected to nature.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So one of the questions, and I'll open this up for any one or multiple people to respond to this. But I think for a lot of people who are not conversant in beekeeping, the first thing, the main thing, for many people, the only thing we think about when we think about bees is honey. But certainly bees have environmental impact beyond honey. Would somebody help draw out for people some of the ways that bees contribute to not only the environment at large, but our existence and our livelihood as humans?
I can jump in. So one thing, what is it? 1 in every 3 bites of food that you have is actually because of a bee. Bees pollinate. And so even if someone is not even eating honey, for example, you still probably have benefited today from the labor of bees. And so I think that's the more obvious one in ways that most of us have been touched by bees. But there's also other things. There are other products that are made in a hive, propolis being one of them, for example. Sometimes people can make that into a tincture, and it can have medicinal properties from there. And so some people use it as a way to heal wounds. Some people use it as a way to be able to manage even diabetes, I've heard about. It can help with headaches. It can help with colds. And so it's really, it's very medicinal. And the propolis is like a bee glue, to simply put it. It's a very sticky texture that they use in order to help close up any spaces in the hive, but that itself can also even be used as a way. And we know that the ancient Egyptians, for example, would use honey for skin and hair treatments. And so it has a lot of ways that bees can help to benefit us, even outside of honey.
Yeah. One of the things that I saw in Marcellis, feel free to jump in, but one of the things that I saw as I was reading about this is that the amount of pollination that bees do, and that if we had to replicate the work that bees do in terms of pollinating flowers, pollinating plants, the cost, the labor cost would be unsustainable. And so bees are a source of free labor that make our food costs, that help to keep our food costs as reasonable as they are. Marcellis, go ahead. You were about to say something before I cut you off.
Yeah, no, I think Karyn did a good job surmising really their big impact in terms of that healing factor and the pollination. But one thing I also think about too is or they made me kind of realize is sometimes we don't always recognize how all the factors in the ecosystem make it thrive. And if you take out or you add too much, sometimes all that can throw off a dynamic. And one thing I've noticed, even though we see that the bees are very territorial over their honey and things like that, I see a lot of other animals that also are able to, eat honey as well. So when I think about the role of honey in our lives, they also have an even greater purpose in terms of regulating and kind of adding benefit to these ecosystems that they are part of.
Yeah. Nature is such a delicate balance. And I think more and more we are learning that what we think of as small interruptions in nature can have devastating impact that can ripple throughout an ecosystem, and that can impact us for generations upon generations. I want to talk about what the everyday person who may not be in a place to do beekeeping, even as a hobby. But what are ways that we can be attentive in our regular lives to this particular segment of environmental justice and awareness? How can we help to support the ecosystem, support this work that's happening? For somebody who's not about to go be a beekeeper right now, what are things that you would want us to learn from this conversation?
Would you like to kick us off, Karyn?
Please go. Oh, wait, you muted yourself.
Sorry about that. But I know one thing with a lot of Black people that I talk to too, a lot of Black folks are scared of bees. A lot of Black folks are scared of nature in general. So I think, taking that moment to step outside of your comfort zone, try something new. And I think Karyn mentioned it earlier about doing your research, seeing if something is for you or not for you. And nature is so vast, there's something for everybody. So even if you're not into beekeeping, maybe you might be into hiking. Maybe if you're not into hiking, you might want to try gardening. So I definitely encourage everybody, and even if it's just at home, starting with maybe a pollinator garden, because that'll really allow you to kind of interact. I know people all the time who talk about oh, I saw these bees in my garden and it made me think of you. So you might start with a pollinator garden where you got all these ornamental flowers that, can beautify your house or property, or you can even do herbs. So a lot of bees really like herbs. So now we're talking about a mutually beneficial relationship where now you could actually harvest mint, thyme, all these different herbs that the bees like, but now we could actually utilize too. You know what I'm saying? So now that's like a low stakes way. Now, if people want to get involved more, there's so many places you could volunteer. I think agriculture is a very, inviting, welcoming field where, when I just got into beekeeping, I just hit somebody up online and they were like, you're welcome to come to my property and visit my apiary and learn about beekeeping. People are really forthright with this information. And you just got to find, those communities and, just tap in, and it could be slow. It doesn't have to be, all at once. You don't have to be like me and Trey. You don't have to quit your job and do a full 360. Maybe you want to, just, kind of creep in little by little. But, I think, definitely not overthinking it and just, understanding that, everything happens in the right time and in the right place. So it's never too many worries.
So I want to follow up real quick, Marcellis. So you said mint, thyme, as herbs that people could plant that help support bees, and that also are really, I love having fresh mint, especially as summertime is coming. Having fresh mint on food and drinks is fabulous. And then thyme. I mean, thyme and rosemary are two of my favorite herbs to cook with. And so thinking about having fresh thyme coming out of the garden is amazing. Are there other plants, other flowers, herbs that could be planted that would be helpful for somebody who might just, go to the local nursery or a local gardening store? What should they be asking for or looking at to plant that would help be a pollinator garden?
Yeah, lavender is probably the best. This is just my opinion, but it's probably one of the best plants you can get because it doesn't need a lot of water. You can just set it out and deer won't eat it. It smells great and bees love it. You can use it to help you go to sleep. You can use it to cook with the flowers and the leaves. So lavender is probably the best herb for bees. In my opinion, I mean, they're all good, but lavender and mint are probably the best. But lavender is another one that wasn't mentioned as far as I know.
Lavender is fabulous. I love, I just had, there's a Black cheesecake maker in Cincinnati who did a lavender lemon cheesecake. When I tell you, that was amazing. And so now I'm trying to figure out how many things can I make with lavender. So thank you for that. That's wonderful.
As much stuff as you want. I take lavender and infuse it with my honey. Just let it sit for a while, or sometimes I throw it in a double boiler. But lavender, or any herbs and honey is great, but lavender is top tier.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could add a few. So I know, because we and what I've noticed with like a lot of Black people, since we're deferring to environmentalism and agriculture as a way of healing, we more skewed to more all natural. So knowing
Mhm.
that, a lot of the even remedies they use for bees, sometimes some people will utilize essential oils that are derived from herbs like lemongrass, thyme being one of the essential ingredients in a lot of actual bee medicines. You know what I'm saying? So the closer we get to actually just making those things available for the bees, they could synthesize their own medicine instead of us having to, treat them, because that's another big thing in beekeeping too.
Yeah, yeah. Um, we have a question. We have a question from our audience that I'd like to share, and that is, um, are there myths or common fears that you encounter that that keep people away from bees? So one common fear is being stung. We had a bee that got trapped in our house, and our 10-year-old son ran and hid in his room until we could get the bee out of the house. But are there other myths or fears about bees that you encounter, and how do you respond to people who have these overwhelming fears?
I usually just have them come out to the farm and see what I'm doing. So I just wear a veil. I don't wear a suit anymore. Because up here, up in the northern states, the bees are a little bit more calm. But I just let people come out and see me working with them, and just see them in their natural state. And kind of like my first statement, I just try to relate the bees to the people, because in general, people would rather defend themselves than be the aggressor. You know what I mean? So bees, if you catch a bee just out away from his hive, it's going to fly away from you 9 times out of 10. But if you catch a bee right by his hive, it'd be a little bit more aggressive, more defensive. So, it's just about just telling people, the truth instead of the movies, killer bees and all those things.
Yeah, yeah,
Could I chime in too?
yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, I definitely so I've had bees that were really aggressive, and I think I might have even traumatized people myself. But I think I just like to remind people that nature is unpredictable, and people cannot always be afraid of the unknown. So even if it's not just bees, we tend to shy away from things that make us step out of our comfort zone, or shy away from things where we can't really control everything. And beekeeping has definitely kind of taught me to be present, be grounded, and I just try and definitely engage people's comfortability levels with certain things, and maybe tell them certain things like, oh, well, male bees, they don't have developed stingers. So, if a male bee lands on you, they actually can't sting you. And I've actually went into a course where when we practice certain things, they had us actually pinch and pick out male bees out the hive, and they don't sting you. You know what I'm saying? So things like that will make people feel like maybe a little bit more at ease. Like they're not just like Trey said, these killer bees. Like they have very different sides and aspects to them too.
Yeah,
I would say, to answer the part of your question about how do people get over the fear, I would say for me, I very much was afraid to the point that I was like trembling the first time I was doing a hive check when I first got my bees, and my mentor had to like take over the rest of the inspection. And for me, though, as I got exposed to the bees more frequently, and so let's say by the third check, I felt more comfortable. And I would say, like, even now, I still have like a healthy fear of the bees, in the sense of I still wear, I wear a suit, but honestly, I'm one of those people. There's 4 levels of reactions when it comes to bee stings. I'm at a level 3 out of 4. And so I get pretty severe reactions. And so for me, I have a healthy fear in the sense of I take precautions. And so I don't think having a fear is necessarily a bad thing when it comes to beekeeping, because it can frankly keep you safe, as well as I find I am more cautious when it comes to other people being exposed to bees. And so I'm very careful when it comes to who comes around, and I pay attention to their behavior, and I make sure that they're not acting in a way that's bad for my neighbors as somebody who beekeeps in an urban city. And so for me, I find that having a fear, I think one, exposure to bees is important, but also it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a fear of bees, in the sense that I actually have found that it helps me to stay better protected.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, so let me tell you, I did not expect to come to this conversation and get so many life lessons out of this conversation. But here is another beautiful life lesson about what does it mean for us to acknowledge the fear and embrace the fear, but not let the fear stop us from what we are doing. I think it's a myth that we have to overcome fears or try to get fears behind us. But sometimes it is about being at peace with the fact that fear exists, and allow ourselves to learn the lessons from it, and to not let that stop us from what it is that we are doing. And Karyn, another question that has come for you from our community is, in what ways has your community supported your beekeeping journey?
It's been one of those things where, I'll be honest, I was afraid to tell people at first that I was taking a course, because I was like, people are going to think that something is wrong with me. Like, how many Black beekeepers do you know? Honestly, I was the first one I knew. So I thought that, so I was expecting people to be more, kind of like, girl, what? But I'm a bit quirky sometimes in what I choose to learn and do. And so I think people weren't quite they were surprised, but not necessarily shocked I was doing stuff. And so I have found it's been encouraging in community, because, people ask me questions. When I was finally able to harvest, it took me 2 years or 2 beekeeping seasons to get honey. But when I did, people showed up. When it comes to buying my honey, people have, just been able to support, share what I'm doing. When I thought of beekeeping while Black, people were like, I love that. And people shared it. And so for me, my community has been really great, and I've loved being able to build that community as well. And so I love the community that so many of us are building as Black beekeepers, even over like Instagram. Like with Marcellis and Trey, for a long time, I just knew them by their Instagram handles, but we're building communities where we are sharing resources, we're collaborating across different, states and cities. And so it's just been amazing to be able to expand what my community looks like, and to be able to really see people show up for me in that way, and to be able to support it is really good, because beekeeping has been a path of self-discovery that was very much took me out of my comfort zone. And it's been amazing to see people show up still for me in that way.
Trey, we have a question about people would like you to answer the same question. As somebody who is here in Ohio, how has your community been supportive of you in your journey and in the creation of Hood Honey?
Oh man, hope my phone don't die. I'm walking to my next charger. But man, community has been so supportive in this, and I didn't expect it. But it's just been time. People are just ready to
we are losing Trey's connection. Hopefully we will get him back really soon as he gets to a place of a better connection. But there's another question, and Karyn, you kind of alluded to this, but we love for you all to
see things different. Everything's like online. Turn it on. Turn it on. Turn it on.
We want to ask everybody who are the other Black beekeepers around the country that you all follow, that you all are in conversation with, for people who are looking for others to be inspired by. Who are the voices out there that you all know and pay attention to?
Hey Trey, are you back with us now? Because
I'm back. I think I'm back.
Oh, there we go. There we go. So Trey, can you can go ahead and finish up answering that question about the community and how the community's been supportive of you?
Yeah. So yeah, it's just been overwhelming. Just having my neighbors come up to the farm, my mom, my grandmother, my dad, people I never met. Marcellis is my good friend, and I just started beekeeping and just put it on Instagram. And Marcellis was like, "Man, I'm coming to Cleveland," and he like came a week later, and like I had never experienced nothing like that. But it wasn't until I started seeing other people do it, then I started seeing what people saw in me, and it's been really like amazing just to see the community support me, but all of us as a whole. Like just seeing Nick out in Phoenix, seeing Marcellis, seeing Karyn, and this kind of answers the other question, the beekeepers around. We got a friend named Bill. What is his Instagram handle? I'm gonna find it. Be About It up in New Jersey also. So it's just been so many people just around the country doing it, and then seeing them get support in their own hometowns and around the country has been really encouraging.
Are there others that you would want to shout out, other people, Black beekeepers that you would want to shout out for people?
Yeah, I mean, these are, I mean, we don't do favorites, but these are two of my favorites right here, right now. But, like you mentioned, Bill and Nika. Bill is in Atlanta, Georgia. Nika, she's in Phoenix with Bayhives. I think it's at Bayhives on Instagram. And Bill's is Rooted Family Farm.
There we go.
There's so many, and it's just interesting to see how our networks work, like how Trey likened us to the bees. I feel like the Black beekeepers, like we're a small concentrated number, and in some capacity we all, share information or just share encouragement and really just show support, show love. But even within, Black beekeepers, I met, Latina beekeepers, I met, a lot of, underrepresented groups, you know what I'm saying? And together we really do make up I think it's a really unique support network, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like we're such a niche space that, when you find and connect with your people that are in this space, you really, lock in. And it's like, that, this is not just anybody. This is somebody who dedicates the time, energy to this work. So, you can, kind of like trust them. Like when I first met Trey, it was pretty much just like, for the time that we met, it was just like, all right, like, you got to be cool. You know what I'm saying? If you're crazy enough to do beekeeping, you got to be cool. All right, come on, let's get started. You know what I'm saying? And from then on,
you like a person that's crazier than me. You crazier than me, man. Like sidebar, man, this dude just pulled up to a park and just put bees in there, like a freaking city park, and didn't ask no questions, just put them there.
It was a long time ago. I was looking at all the guerrilla farming, and I remember, because now we come to such a different place. I'm saying like how Trey mentioned, like everybody being overwhelmingly supportive and stuff. But when stuff first started, I very much felt like it was resistance. You know what I'm saying? I felt like this is our way of kind of breaking out of the system and kind of finding our independence, reconnecting with nature, our source, and really prioritizing what's most important. So I was like, you know what? I'm tired of having to get the permits, having to get the license, having to do all these restrictive things that are putting distance between us and our solution, our end goal. And I jump up off that cliff, and I was out in the park for a whole season.
Crazy.
It really goes to show that however your personality shows up, there are ways for you to engage in the work that is true to your personality. It doesn't have to look like somebody else's, but there are ways that you can bring your personality into this. We have a question from Twitter about the different variations of bees. Can somebody help us to understand the different kinds of bees there are?
Yeah, it is 20,000 different species of bees that have been recorded lately. And honeybees are just one of them, you know, and this is like one of our responsibilities as beekeepers is to make people aware of the bees that don't make honey and how important they are to farming, you know, and flowering plants, like just the continuation of the other, continuation of plant lives, you know, because bees, the most simple way to put it is that bees just help plants have sex. And if you take away all the bees like we're doing now, then plants can't make more of themselves, you know, and they're facing extinction because they don't have anybody to help them do the do, you know. So honeybees are, you know, like Karyn said, every 3 bites, a honeybee contributes to that. But the other bees around the world, they contribute to 80% of flowers, period. You know, so using Roundup, supporting companies like Roundup in other various ways, which are a little hidden. I forgot what other companies they own. And just honestly, building it deeper and deeper into the suburbs is destroying habitats because you got to tear down trees, which is where a lot of bugs live, you know, dig up ground where a lot of bees live, you know, and even taking up old logs, you know, that's taking up a place where bees live, you know. So we think that we're not doing much, you know, like, yeah, I'm going to go move out 40 minutes out the city and have me a new house built. But we don't realize like that trees are animal apartments, you know. So if you clear 2,000 trees, you just cleared 2,000 apartments. It's like redlining a little bit. So, you know, it's kind of crazy to think that we are kind of biting the hand that feeds us at this moment in time.
Yeah. And if you think that this is not impact us, imagine what happens when species of plants die and it starts impacting our oxygen levels. That this is not just about environmentalism for the sake of protecting animals, but this is also hugely self-interested in helping to create and sustain a habitable planet for our future. So the last question as we bring the conversation to a close is about how we can support. But just before I ask you that, and we'll ask in the order that we did introductions, but I want to first say to everyone, if you are on Instagram, to pick up your phone right now, and you can do what I just did as we began this conversation and follow these 3 amazing people on Instagram. If you put in Hood Honey, Apiary in the Sky, and Beekeeping While Black, you will be able to find them and follow them so that you can see the work they are doing and be connected with them via social media. But outside of following you and sharing posts and reading information on social media, how can the people who've been inspired, wowed by this conversation, how can they be supportive of your work? And Trey, we'll start with you.
Yes. Thank you, Nelson, for hosting this. And thank you to CommEN Strategies. This is a great panel. Like, I enjoyed it. Wish my phone wasn't dying half the time, but you know, we're here. But you can support by following me on Instagram or Facebook at HoodHoney216. You can support by composting. You can support by letting your grass grow a little longer. You can support by following Bay Hives. And you can support by sharing our videos and letting people know and buying from your local farmers. You can support by talking to the city about the pesticides they use. There's so many ways to support, but those are the ways I can think of off the top of my head.
Karyn, how can we support you in the work you're doing?
Yeah, I appreciate that. If people are interested in having conversations about larger environmental issues, especially communities of faith, that you can visit creationjustice.org. But also for me as a beekeeper to support my work, I have Beekeeping While Black as a website, as well as I'm on Instagram and YouTube. Definitely need the followers on YouTube. But when it comes to the Beekeeping While Black, I actually have the honey book, I call it, and it is actually a directory of Black beekeepers in the US. And so, of course, it's not everyone on the list, but if you want to be able to just support the site, I'm asking for people to support Black beekeepers where possible, and you can find that on Beekeeping While Black under Honey Book. And if you know any Black beekeepers who aren't on the list, then please share them with me or send them my way. And I'm happy to include them as I continue to try to build that directory.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And Marcellis, if you can close us out with how we can be supportive.
Yeah, and I think that, Karyn and Trey really summed it up. So I always tell people to put your heart in it. So, as you've moderated, and brought us together, use your platform, kind of uplift our message. I think that everybody has their own unique talents and abilities. And if they, really put their heart in it, and, some folks are going to come to our spaces and volunteer with us, put in the time and energy. Other people, they can't make themselves available, but they may donate or share, you know what I'm saying? People always ask, like, where do you start? And, you just take that first step. Do some research, like Trey said, you might really incorporate these practices into your lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? If you really want to be a part of this larger movement, there's so many ways to get involved, but if you could do anything, just start.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I want to again thank Trey, thank Karyn, thank Marcellis for this absolutely amazing conversation. One of the things that I would like to share as a closing thought is that the ways in which we engage in our natural environment is so important and so critical. And what you've heard is three people who have taken concrete steps in their lives to help contribute to making the world better through tending, nurturing the environment around us. And what they have also shared is small ways that we all can participate in doing this, that it doesn't have to be a huge life shift, but by taking steps where we live, by being thoughtful about plants that we allow to grow in nature around us, by changing the way we think about bugs and insects and animals, that we can also contribute to this, as well as doing the important and necessary things like being intentional about where we spend our money and with whom we spend our money. And so I hope that this conversation has impacted you in the way that it's impacted me, and that in addition to supporting this, these amazing guests, that you will be increasingly thoughtful and intentional about how you show up in the world around you. Thank you so much for your time and for this conversation. And thank you to the Black Environmental Leaders Association and CommEN Strategies for hosting this Black Landscapes Matter speaker series. We look forward to joining you again next month for our next conversation. Thank you so much. Have a great night.